Good morning. We are live. I hope. As always, let me know if you can pick up the audio okay and the visual quality is okay. Just let me know if you can hear me. And first thing, I'm so sorry about Wednesday. I don't know what happened there. There was no issue with my internet connection, so it must have been an issue with the streaming for whatever reason. I am praying it doesn't happen again today. If the stream just goes down, I have to start a new stream, essentially. So if the stream goes down, go back to the channel, and there should be a new stream that comes up soon. Because when it went down, I couldn't restart the same stream, if that makes sense. So let's see how we do, shall we? Before we do anything, just while we're waiting for the chat to fill up, waiting for the group to fill up, just a sense of being. Just an aligning, centering within the space of the present moment. Whatever we've had going on in the mind for this morning or afternoon or whole day, depending on wherever you are in the world. Just a sense of leaving that aside for a moment. And just a sense of becoming aware of this present moment now. Simply a sense of what already is. Beautiful. Dorth, Denmark in the house. My apologies about Wednesday, Dorth. I know we were trying to connect on that Wednesday and we couldn't quite get it up and running. But fingers crossed, we'll have a good one today. Touch wood. So, today's session, we will begin with our guided meditation, which usually lasts between 20 to 40 minutes. I try to keep it between 20 and 30 minutes, but I just go with the flow of whatever is arising within the present moment. And sometimes the natural intuition and the natural inclination just comes through to continue. I often find that once you've found the space of being, once you've found the present moment, once you've found a sense of peace, that it just makes sense to simply continue to abide within that space for as long as feels like it is still beneficial and feels natural. After the guided meditation, we will move into the question and answer section, which will be an opportunity to ask any questions you might have, share any insights, share any experiences you may have had, either during the meditation that we did today, or just throughout your general meditative practice and your general spiritual journey. So today, we are going to be becoming aware of bodily sensation and actually using the sense, the felt experience of the body as the focus of attention for our meditative awareness. Now, this can be quite challenging, as the sensations in the body often come with a pre-packaged emotional charge, and it can be quite the challenge to observe the sensations in the body without placing any mental image, label, or opinion on any of those sensations. We have a lot of emotions tied up and stored within the body. So just being aware of that to begin with. As we are going to be doing a deep exploration of the body, some people prefer to lay down during this type of meditation. So if you wish to do so, by all means do so. However, please be aware of the tendency to fall asleep during meditation, as meditation can be incredibly and powerfully relaxing, but relaxation is not the true intention of our meditation today. So if you wish to lay down because you feel it will help you to deepen your exploration of the body, then by all means go ahead. But just be aware that laying down has more of a tendency to send the participant to sleep. I always prefer a seated position for meditation, but it really doesn't matter all that much. It just comes down to the preference of the individual. So, beginning here, by simply immersing yourself within the present moment. A deep recognition that your experience is only ever now. There is no next moment. There is no previous moment. There is only this moment now. And notice that the mind has a objection to this and will continually try to pull your attention into a thought stream. Thoughts of the future, thoughts of the past, memories, predictions, visual images, emotions tied to future and past. Just allow the mind to do this if it wants to, but continually shift your attention back to the felt experience of now. And if you find at any point during this meditation that you have become lost in a stream of thoughts again, do not be overly frustrated by this. This is a natural habit of the mind that has been going on for a very long time. And so if we notice that we have become lost in a stream of thoughts, no need for frustration. We'll simply return attention back and just allow yourself to be with what is. Just this. Even if the present moment contains for you situations or a circumstance that you would ordinarily feel is unpleasant or painful, just a sense of being aware within this moment of the content of this moment only, and begin practicing a sense of impartial observation. Meaning, we will release the mind from the burden of trying to decide if the current situation is good or bad, positive or negative. Just for this time now, a sense of just leaving this all alone. Very good. Now, bringing the focus of awareness to the sensations of breathing. Simply allow the breath to rise and fall. And there is no need to force the breath in or force the breath out. Just by becoming aware of the breath, you will notice that the breath naturally deepens itself. And noticing that it's possible to be fully aware of the sensations of breathing from a very neutral place. There is no good breathing or bad breathing. You cannot breathe correctly or incorrectly. Just notice that the process of breathing is occurring and really feel these sensations within the body, the felt experience of breathing. The breath is a powerful anchor into the presence of being. Recognize deeply, one cannot experience a future breath. And one cannot experience a previous breath. Felt experience of sensation in the body always draws attention to now. Sensation in the body is not a prediction. Sensation in the body is not imagination or apprehension. Sensation in the body is not a memory as we ordinarily experience a memory. A sensation in the body is just a sensation. And all sensation is experienced now. Now, for the duration of the remainder of this meditation, we are not going to be interested in anything in the apparent external outside world. Instead, the attention of awareness will be entirely within the inner world of the body. And anytime the mind becomes lost in conceptualizing or intellectualizing, simply return to the sensations of breathing as the anchor into the now. Expand awareness to cover the entirety of the body. And there is no need to try and evoke new sensations or imagine any new sensations, but simply become aware of what is already. Even if there are areas in the body that don't really have a sensation that registers consciously, just be aware that there is a blankness there, a curious dullness to the areas that you just can't feel presently. And to truly explore this felt sense of the body, we must truly remain present. There are no stories now. We are closing the book of the past, so the past cannot be a reference point to make a description about the body, to create an image about the body. There is no reference point for us to decide why the body is the way it is in its current state. We're just not interested in any of that for now. The only thing that we are concerned with here is the raw experience, the direct felt experience of bodily sensation now. Nothing led to this point. It just is. Developing a beam of awareness, but this awareness will be fully neutral. And just for the duration of this meditation, we will not be using any descriptions, any mental images, any labels, any opinions. There will be no interpretation or analysis. We are not going to try and change anything within the experience of the body. Simply a deep, neutral, impartial awareness is all that is required. There is no pressure, just awareness only. So moving the awareness to the top of the head, the top of the skull, and just being aware of the sensations in that area. But we are not taking any notes. We are not writing a description of how the body is felt. Just experience the sensation. That is all that is required. Do not even try to relax any areas. Just notice what is already here. Allow that awareness to just fall down the forehead, the area above the eyes, just noticing what is there. If any areas register as blank or numb, that is powerful also. And moving that awareness around the eyes now, through the temples, and through the entirety of the head behind the eyes, towards the back of the skull, down through the jaw, up and around the ears, and into the neck. Just awareness, just notice what is here. And can this be experienced just as it is? No labels or judgments, just awareness only. Allowing that awareness to flood down the neck, in and around the shoulders, the top of the chest, around the collarbones, and no stories here, nothing led to this point, just the experience of now, through the shoulder joints, down the arms, the front of the chest, and into the solar plexus, around the ribs. Just the sensations that are already there. Also, the upper back and mid back. Just this open, empty cloud of knowing. And notice here already the habit of the mind will have been so loud during this process. Naming, labeling, attaching stories, trying to decide if certain sensations are good or bad, planning things to fix, or ruminating on why the body is a certain way. Just noticing the mind's habit to do this, and paying no attention to any of this content of the mind. Just come to see the mind activity as a vapor, a transparent cloud of mist that arises up and out of anywhere that the awareness lands upon. And down through the mid back, into the lower back, just a feeling of what already is here, a noticing of these sensations, and in and around the stomach. If you become aware that you have a tendency to want to rush past certain areas, just be aware of your inclination to rush past an area. This will be powerful knowledge for you later. Allow that awareness now to fall out of the entirety of the torso and fall into the hips. The hips connect the lower and upper, and so often become so tense they become numb. But just for this time now, open awareness and expand this impartial, neutral, simple awareness to what is within the hips. Through the top of the legs, around the thighs, and yes, around the groin region also. Remember, no stories, no mental images, no interpretation or analysis, just allow what is. Allow that awareness to flood down the legs, into the knees. Just simple, clear, seeing only. Down through the calves, in and around the ankles, into the feet and the toes. Now, opening that beam of awareness out from the narrow beam to a wide floodlight, and simply flood the entirety of the body with the awareness. Just an opening. See clearly. Continuing to breathe. And perhaps a deeper contemplation and reflection here. Within this present moment, what is the felt experience of the body? If we were not to place any opinion upon it, is the sensation of the body a problem? Within this present moment, do we feel as though the body is in the way of anything? Are we frustrated by it? Do we feel limited by it? Become aware of all of the narratives that are ordinarily attached to this body. And how different the experience of the body would be if all of those narratives simply vanished. if we had a storybook that contained everything you've ever felt about your body, everything you've ever perceived about your body, all of the images, judgments, and everything was written in this book. And now we simply close that book and put it in the bin. Just not interested for this time. Instead, going deeply into the felt experience of the sensation as it is now. Coming to see the sensations of the body as they are pervaded by awareness. And in this contemplation, just a gentle asking of the question, could I have a sensation in the body that I was not aware I was having? Anything you're not aware you're having can't be a sensation. So awareness always brings us fully into the now. Now understanding the body is a doorway that swings two ways. The body can be a doorway that leads to the spiritual space of open, empty, formless awareness, true liberation. Or the body can also swing in the opposite direction and tie us and bind us to this apparent, illusory, physical reality. You choose which way this doorway swings. And this doorway is called identification. The binding to the physical, the apparent, manifest world is created by the identification with the body. The doorway into the open, empty, formless, peaceful presence of being is found through identification with the awareness. So the body does not necessarily, in and of itself, take us one way or the other. The direction we go is decided entirely by your perspective. So, how to stay on the side of the open, the empty, the serene? By recognizing one very simple truth. Just because you are aware of something does not mean that you are that thing. Just as with your vision, you may perceive a tree with your sight, you understand that this does not mean you are the tree. It just means that for this time, your vision includes the tree. Your awareness includes the tree. So too, you are aware of the sensations in the body. This does not necessarily mean that the entirety of your being is this body. Your awareness temporarily includes this body. But just because you are aware of these sensations in the body, that doesn't mean that is the entirety of what you are. So remaining as the awareness, begin softening the attention that we have been placing on bodily sensation. Knowing that the body is still there, but just as we can become disinterested in the content of the mind, just for this short time now, become disinterested in the content of the body. We know it's there, but just a sense of allowing it to run in the background and residing instead just as the awareness itself. Perceiving deeply the content of the mind and body are not separate entities. They go together. There is no real separation between mind and body. And notice you can hold both the mind and the body in the same space of total impartial awareness. Now, as we've come to this space of deepening the felt sense and experience of the body, there is no harm in allowing some of that tension to simply fall away now. As we begin to bring ourselves away from the formal aspect of the meditation, just practice a little of that loving awareness. All of the areas in the body that were maybe a bit more condensed, a bit darker, just allow them to evaporate. And really do this now. You will surprise yourself with just how much power you have to release these areas that felt automatically contracted. They are not automatically contracted at all. They are just running in the background as an old tension. Just release that tension. No need to think about it too much. Just a release. Just a release. Wherever that tension is in the body, maybe you found some in the neck, around the chest, the arms, around the eyes, the head, the back, wherever. Just a release, release, release. Recognizing the body is so safe. You have seen clearly your true position is the awareness of the body, so allow the body just to relax. It is fully safe. You may wish to breathe deeper, breathe out more. Just get all of that tension out. And don't be frustrated if some tension remains. That's fine. There's an infinite amount of time because it doesn't exist. So just allow it to just fall away, fall away, fall away. Noticing the areas of the body that do not want to give up their tension. And this just gives us some very powerful information. Just release, release, release. And taking a few final deeper breaths here as we begin to bring ourselves into the informal aspect of the meditation, the questions and answers. But notice as we begin to come out of the formal aspect of the meditation, the mind has a tendency to pick up the old storybooks, to start trying to get involved and lost in the identification with body and mind. See if it's possible to continue to act, continue to speak, continue even to think, but without so much of this tight, rigid identification with the body-mind. A sense of being more free with behavior, more open, without the need to continually be making a note of everything and continuing to write this same old story that never really seems to change. Just a sense of openness and freedom. There's no need for any stories. Identifying with the awareness, and all the stories just fall away. Just notice the mind doesn't go lightly. It's going to want to keep its control and hold on to its power, but we don't need to let it do this. So we may wish to shift our posture as we begin to reopen our eyes. And here I'll open out to any questions, queries, insights, anything that anyone would like to share or discuss. It's so good to have all these good mornings coming in. Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome. So we have a shared experience here. I was a little nervous in doing this today, as I can always feel a rushing sensation throughout my body. Plus, this week, I'd had a huge energy release that was so strong, my body went numb as it shook. However, this was more gentle and less scary. Thank you. This does happen. That shaking on energy release is always a good sign. It came up, I think a couple of weeks ago, somebody mentioned TRE, which stands for Trauma Release Exercise. It's by a teacher called Chris Command. And there's various exercises, positions, and postures that are essentially encouraging that trembling response, because that trembling is the feeling of the muscle releasing its tension, of the body releasing its tension. If you've ever had a massage, like a deep tissue massage, when they find a knot, they press on that knot and it's kind of painful. But the release, when that knot just comes loose, the whole muscle quivers. There's a quivering to it. So if you feel that that shaking upon an energy release, it's actually just the sense of muscle tension releasing. Often, you may have found it during this particular meditation as well. We don't realize just how tense we're holding the body a lot of the time, particularly if you have gone a long time with a low level chronic anxiety, a low level chronic sadness, depression, lowness, or if you've just experienced a lot of very intense experiences in your life. The body doesn't always release these straight away. So sometimes we get the tension come on in, and then it's only upon it, because we're holding it so tight for so long, we forget we're doing it. It's like somebody if you held your fist all the time, if you constantly held like that, you would forget that it's doing that, and you would think that's just normal. That's just my hand, because you've forgotten that you're holding it so tightly. And we do this in the less conscious areas of our body, like what we would say in the physiological terms. My background is in anatomy and physiology, because I'm a personal trainer. We call it involuntary muscle. So it's not the muscle we have our conscious control of. The deeper muscles, the stabilizer muscles, often that's why the stomach and all that area around the stomach, the back, the neck, that's where a lot of the times the tension is stored. And to release, because it's been so tight for so long, it doesn't just happen immediately. There can be that trembling and shaking, and then it tightens up again. And so we need to keep repeating through this practice and just continually wash through the body with the awareness and the release, the release, the release. The deeper we can get into the truly embodied, felt sense of peace, the more we develop and engender the sense of safety. And that is the key to resolving our anxiety and fear. If we have suffered from worry, overthinking, anxiety, and fear, often persistently in the past, we have to begin immersing ourselves often and for as long as possible in a sense of safety. It's commonly misperceived that the solution to anxiety and tension is peace and quiet, but it's actually safety, and that's different. If you think we have this overactive nervous system response, fight or flight, it's not going to stay active if it knows it's safe. Now, the most powerful way to truly know this safety is to know that you are the presence of conscious awareness. Because the presence of conscious awareness is not vulnerable. It can't be attacked. It doesn't have a story. It can't be damaged. It can't be hurt. It is just the presence of conscious awareness. It can be quite disorienting if we're not accustomed to that huge energy release. And so no wonder you might feel a little bit nervous about the approach of meditating using awareness as the focus point. But as usual, just know it's a good sign. Know that it's normal. Know that it's a normal part of the process. And ultimately, these tensions and tremors will just wash out of the body. There are various practices that help to speed this process along. But also know that once you have begun to see the body from a different perspective, it's almost like the medicine's already in. It may take some time to truly take root and take effect, but it's in. It's in. The safety is in. The space is in. The peace is in. It can be more difficult when it's the body that we're dealing with. The mind feels more temporary and fleeting, whereas the body has a solidity to the feelings. But don't be nervous. Have courage. It's better to have these things out, come what may. We've held on to this pain for long enough. Let it evaporate. Let it just breathe. It already is. And if it's happening, then it's already been accepted by the universe. It's been pre-accepted, pre-approved by the universe. So just let whatever needs to come out, come out. Good morning, good morning. Okay. Okay. Hi, Corinne. In your opinion, what is the best and most, it says here, the most effort spiritual practice, but am I right in assuming you mean most effective spiritual practice? Because you might mean effort. I don't know. You might mean what's the most effort, because some of them do take a lot of effort. Efficient. Okay. What is the best and most efficient spiritual practice? That is, it's obviously it's a very logical and very natural question to ask, because naturally we want to find the most efficient and the most effective. The difficulty, the challenge in answering that question is in it's going to be so different for every individual for so many different reasons. Mostly because people have had different experiences, they've had a completely different cultural upbringing. So your frame of reference for understanding is going to be for every single individual is going to be different, because although we have groups of people that grow up with a certain cultural, they may have even already had some sort of spiritual conditioning, some sort of framework of understanding the reality and understanding themselves. Even though we could have groups that have had the same conditioning, each individual within that group is going to have very different experiences of life and different reasons why they've even started the spiritual practice. So the key when we're guiding the seeker to the most efficient practice is to do what feels the most effective within the immediacy of the moment. So what we always have to do is start where you are. This is true in anything, whether we're doing spiritual practice or whether we're doing fitness training. It's all the same thing ultimately, but we start where somebody already is. So just whatever your current framework is, whatever your current understanding of the world is, start there. That's where I started, because I had a very sort of scientific and atheistic perspective on things. So naturally, where I began was based very much in cognitive behavioral therapy and very much based in a sort of scientific form of meditation. And it was over years that I naturally gravitated towards Advaita, which means non-duality. But the process of getting there, it was just an unfolding process as my way too rigid mindset and way too, I would say, almost atheistic, dogmatic mindset was too rigid. And so it took some dissolving and evaporating in order to for that path to progress. There is some nuances that we must understand. No matter where we are, no matter where we start on the mountain, and no matter which direction we approached the mountain from, it's all the same mountain ultimately. So if you imagine every single spiritual seeker on earth is all climbing this mountain, and this mountain is huge and has so many different pathways on it. Some of them go straight up, some of them are much gentler and smoother, some are rocky, some have steps that just lead up there. There's also a ski lift on one side of things. And what can happen is that because everyone's journey is so different, I might be going up the mountain on a certain path. And because I'm so identified with this particular path, I think this is the only path, because this is the only path that I can see. um, so that's why you get a lot of arguing that happens, because all of the seekers are all yelling at each other saying, no, this is the correct path. But you have to understand they all lead to the top of the mountain, all of them. So the first thing that I would say, certain for definite, for absolute concrete, is that they're all good. One of the things that really opened my perspective and helped me break out of a very rigid mindset was something called integral Zen, in which he said that all disciplines, all spiritual practices, all religions, all sciences, all philosophies, every single one of them is literally true. All of them are literally to the letter true and absolutely 100% accurate. And there was something about that, because obviously to my logical, analytical mind, I was like, that cannot be the case. There has to be one truth, and that's got to be it, right? And we're all just trying to find it. But in the integral approach, it brought everything together. And there's a softening of the rigidity of the mindset. So that's why it's kind of hard to answer this question, because I can't say one is any better than any other. They're all good. They're all good. But some are going to work better for some individuals, and some are not going to work at all for some individuals. It does just depend on the individual, which isn't a very satisfying answer because you might want to just hear, no, it's got to be this way, because we like hearing that. We like hearing, no, this is somebody to come along with enough confidence and courage to say, no, this is the way, this is the only way, this is how it must be done, and this is how it's done. There's a lot of security in that. We feel secure when the teacher is like that, because it's like, well, they really mean it. They're getting this passion from somewhere. And that's why people get these like huge followings. But it's kind of dangerous as well, because if it's only my way or the highway, it's too rigid and doesn't allow for the individual expression. The flip side of that, if it's too loose and there's no direction at all, it's just chaos. And that doesn't bring us any closer to the top of the mountain either. That's just having a picnic on the side of the mountain. So they're the sorts of considerations that we have to take on board when we're trying to find our spiritual practice. I would say the best way to find it for you. So firstly, understand that there is not one way of doing this. There will be your way of doing this, and it may be very similar to somebody else's, but ultimately it's going to be your way of doing this. It may be informed by particular frameworks. You may wish to follow certain steps. There are certain paths that have steps. You may wish to do that. But ultimately, it's going to be your personal journey to the top of the mountain. But understand, at the very top of the mountain, it's the same destination. But essentially, we're all like moths to a flame. Once we get to the top, we all disappear. That's just what happens. So understanding that there is no singular right way, but there will be a right way for you. That might sound like, but what's the difference? But it's an important distinction to understand. There will be a right way for you, but it's not the right way for everyone. It will be informed by your experiences thus far, your cultural conditioning, your upbringing, your current friendship group, your current cultural influences, because you have to start where you are. You can't start a journey 10 miles down the road, because you're going to have to journey to get to that 10 miles down the road. So start wherever you are, whatever you have currently, whatever your current practice is. If you have a practice, then just start there. As with, I always, and again, this is the same in fitness training as it is in meditation coaching and spiritual teaching, always refer back to, is this working? That's one of the key factors that we have to, because it's so easy to become lost along the way. So a good way to make sure that we keep coming back on course is to repeatedly reassess, is this working? Am I, and the way to assess that is, do you feel more at peace? There are so many. And as I've already explained, I'm not going to yell at anyone else's path going up the mountain, because we're all going up the mountain. Hey, I'll see you at the top, right? We're all going on up there. So I don't want to disparage anyone else. But I have noticed there's a lot of people who believe they're doing spiritual practice, but they're not becoming any more peaceful. They're not any happier. They're not any more liberated. It's just a spiritual coat of paint on their life, and it's just not working. Their life just isn't working. Their life's still chaos. It's still mental turmoil. It's still turmoil in the life circumstance and situation. And I feel like that's a huge shame. It keeps me up at night. That's partly why I do what I do. I wanted to bring some clarity sometimes and make sure that there are meditation practices that are varied and that will speak to everyone, and just reaffirm, just steer the ship back on course. And that constant question is this working? Do I feel at peace? Do I feel liberated? Is anything changing? Because for years I was practicing just pure like staying present in the present moment, but then I just suddenly became aware. I was like, hang on, I'm fully present, but the anxiety is not going anywhere. These problems are continuing, and that's what triggered a deeper seeking. So in terms of what's the most efficient practice, you also have to understand why are you seeking? Why are you, what is it about the spiritual practice that's gotten you, why are you interested in this? Because in my experience, there tends to be two categories. Broadly speaking, it's a big spectrum, but broadly speaking, people tend to fall into one or the other, or they're somewhere on the spectrum in between. And the two categories are people who are seeking to alleviate suffering, to feel more at peace, to get some relief from the mental turmoil and their suffering in life and other people's suffering. And then there's the other category of people who are searching for the truth, who are seeking answers to the metaphysical things, who are seeking a deeper understanding of what is all this? What's going on? What is all this anyway? What is this? Why is anything happening? Why are we even here? Like, isn't it a bit odd? I like what Alan Watts said. Isn't it a bit strange that anything even exists in the first place? This whole thing's just a bit weird. And I was like, yeah, actually, when you look at it, it is weird, isn't it? So if you're assessing which spiritual practice is going to work best for you, just think about where you are in those camps. Are you trying to alleviate suffering, or are you trying to find the truth? Because that way you can, that's now you've got your goal. Again, I'm going to bring it back to fitness training. If I've got somebody who wants to get bigger and stronger on the bench press, I'm not going to put them on a treadmill. What would be the point of that? We need to get them on the bench press, right? And it's the same. Somebody wants to run marathons, I ain't going to put them on the bench press. I'm going to put them on a treadmill. Well, I wouldn't. I'd get them running outside, but you see my point. Now, you would think that's obvious, but a lot of people, even a lot of personal trainers, don't get that, which I find strange. But we have to, in order to go anywhere, we have to know why we're doing it. So what's your why? Why? Because so if we're seeking to alleviate suffering, we're not going to do a practice that is about the truth. Like, it's not about a deeper insight into the nature of reality, because you're better off doing a practice that directly addresses your personal suffering. But then you find ultimately, eventually, you just get both anyway, because they're both, it's the yin and the yang. They're both part of the same spectrum, right? So you get both anyway. You get a little bonus. You get a little side order. I came here to alleviate suffering, and I got a side order of gnosis and understanding universal truth. It just came along as a little bonus, a little Brucey bonus on the side there. Complimentary of the house, I guess. Again, I'm putting a lot of this back in your hands. You asked me a very direct question, and I'm just constantly putting it back in your hands to decide. But this is what we should do as coaches and teachers. It's not my way or the highway. It's got nothing to do with me in a lot of ways. It's all to do with you. All to do with you. It's got nothing to do with me. It's so. Let's bring this into some solid advice here. As you asked me a question for some advice, and I'm dancing all around the houses. 1, there's no one right path, but there is a right path for you. 2, always ask yourself, is it working? 3, understand, why are you seeking in the first place? What's the purpose behind the journey? Because once you know that, you're away. A lot of people never even assessed that. A lot of people just fell into a spiritual path because they thought they kind of had to. Or they heard something cool, or they read a cool book, right? So they kind of feel like they need to for whatever reason. But if we know why we're doing something, you're away. So the why are we doing it? And then to give you, lastly on this one, to give you something a bit more concrete, there are 2, generally speaking, broader categories when it comes to which path we take. There is the direct path and there is the progressive path. So I would say, if you're trying to choose, just think about which one of these suits you better. Which one of these speaks to you, or you go, oh, I like that. I like the idea there. The direct path is the path I took, and I love it. So naturally, my ego, I'll just let you into the process here. I'll tell you what goes on in my mind. My ego would love to say, it has to be direct path. Direct path is the only way. And I would sit here in samurai armor and go, it must be Zen. And say, it has to be direct path is the only way. My ego would love that. But it's not going to work for everyone. But direct path is the path I took, and I found it to be most effective. So that's that. That's what that is. The direct path is concerned with directly experiencing the full awakening now. Because the direct path teaches you're already enlightened. You're already there. You're already there. The present moment isn't going to go anywhere. Consciousness remains conscious. Conscious awareness is now. That's it. There is no path. All paths, all practices, all journeys are just an unfolding of the illusion. So you can recognize that's happening, absolutely. But we need to go directly to the direct experience and stay there. And recognize that anything that happens as the paraphernalia around it has nothing to do with enlightenment. Why? Because you're already enlightened. You are already there. You're already awake. This is very Zen. Very Zen. This is, there's nothing to do. Often people get infuriated with Zen masters. They'll go to a Zen master and ask this very complicated, deep question. The Zen master's like, why asking me? I don't know. You're just as enlightened as I am. The only difference is I know it and you don't. It's simple. And I think it's the simplicity and the purity of the direct path that I love it. Maybe I'm lazy as well. Because the ski lift that I was talking about to the top of the mountain, I went straight to the ski lift. I ain't climbing no mountain. I ain't climbing that. Give me the ski lift. Now, the direct path is very powerful, and there are so many cases of people just having spontaneous awakenings just from that. They come across the teaching, and for whatever reason, bam, they're just there, and they have just arrived right at the top of the mountain. It's like they just teleported straight to the top of the mountain. Strange. It just happens like that. And the reason that can happen is because you're already conscious awareness of the present moment. And nothing you can do is going to change that. You cannot improve the quality of your consciousness, because that's all to do with the mind. You can improve the quality of your thoughts. You can improve your life, and I would recommend you do so. You can improve your body, you can improve your mind, you can be happier, you can be more fulfilled. Absolutely, you can have all of that. But it's got nothing to do with awakening. Awakening is the recognition. That's the it's called awakening for a reason. We're waking up to the knowledge, the reality of the situation, which is that you are conscious awareness. What you are aware of is, we don't really know, an illusion. But the important thing is to just remain as the awareness. There are many different formats of the direct path. Zen is one of them. Zen is very pure, very clear, very direct, sometimes very much so. And that puts a lot of people off because of its austerity and its severity. But that also attracts a lot of people as well. They like the discipline of it. Advaita, which means non-dual or non-duality. That was a big key for me in that gave me a big turning point, where I was a bit stuck before. I was definitely stuck in the present moment, but I hadn't yet learned the difference about identification with body mind. I hadn't learned about removing the ego, essentially. So Advaita is, if my ego was to give a recommendation, my ego would say it has to be Advaita. And then one higher than Advaita. Now, right, okay. Are you with me? Because we're about to drink the Kool-Aid right here, okay? So cheers, bottoms up. If you want to really go there right now, if you want to jump on the ski lift with me and press fast forward right to the top, stay with me. Because Advaita is up there already. Like, Advaita is seen as one of the most direct, if not the most direct path, because it just goes straight there. You are not separate from the universe. The ego is just another arising within the universe, and whatever, right? It's all an illusion. So just go to the clear recognition of the truth of your being. But in Advaita, which is adapted from a lot of the Hindu tradition, they still say that there is an illusory world. There is the Maya, which is the illusion, as it's seen. In more modern language, people are often calling it the Matrix, which is actually a very accurate term for Maya. It's very interesting how Maya and Matrix kind of work. They can work synonymously, almost. There are differences. And the Wachowski brothers, who made the Matrix, were very influenced by Eastern philosophy. So, maybe there's some inspirare there. So in Advaita, we say, well, what we have to do is recognize the illusion is there, recognize that the Maya is there, recognize the illusory nature of everything that I perceive, yet remain as the awareness of being. Then I became aware of an even more profound and more direct teaching called Ajativada. And in Ajativada, they say the illusion isn't there either. And naturally, you can see how that rubs a lot of people up the wrong way and causes people to have a lot of queries and questions and insights on that one. But in terms of the fastest ski lift right to the top, Ajativada is the way forwards. And literally translated, Ajativada means no birth, no change, no death. It means nada, nothing at all. Even the illusion isn't there. It doesn't get much more direct than that. So that's the direct path. And that's just a few of my ideas and insights on or just if you want to know sort of my experiences, then that's what I chose. But like I say, my ego is going to want to say that's the only way to do it, and that's not the case. Or is it? Is that a double bluff, right? You might be thinking, oh, but he's only saying that so that I don't do that, but maybe right? So, and maybe that's a triple bluff. The other path, so we have the direct path. The other path is the progressive path, and that speaks to a lot of people because the progressive path deals with stages. The progressive path deals with, it says a sort of a quality of the progressive path might be that you have to do certain practices, you have to do certain disciplines, you have to kind of prepare the body and mind before you then progress to the next stage. And then on the next stage, then you develop your understanding and you might learn a bit more knowledge. You might take on the next stage of the practice. You might take on the next phase of the practice, and then you move on to the next one. And the idea is that towards the end, you get closer and closer to a goal, and you are preparing your body and mind, and they might say preparing your consciousness to elevate up and out into the enlightenment. So that's the progressive path. I don't have nearly as much experience or knowledge of the progressive path, so I don't like to speak on things that I don't know too much about. But generally speaking, people fall into one of the two categories, and just understanding that there's a difference between those two things. In general, the direct path tends to speak more about consciousness itself and in like the conscious awareness as it is, whereas the progressive path, from what I've seen, tends to focus more on things in the relative world first. You might see things like physical yoga. Like yoga is a form of progressive path. It's a developing of the body. It's focused on the developing of the body to, the chakras, things like that. That is very progressive path. That is aligning the chakras, purifying the body, purifying the spirit, so that the body and mind becomes more aligned with the divine consciousness, the Brahman, so that there is a preparation of the body, an improvement of the body, a purifying of the body. So yoga, yes, would be absolutely a progressive path. Whereas a facet of the direct path might say, no, don't bother with any of that. Another thing you'll notice, the direct path and the progressive path are always arguing with each other. It gives me such a headache reading some comments sometimes when someone's on one path and somebody's on another path and they're like yelling at each other about it. That is ego identification in a nutshell. That's why it causes conflict. They're just not seeing that they're all going up the same mountain. They just have different paths to get there. A lot of arguments look like this. Someone is saying 2 + 2 = 4. Everybody knows that. And the other person is saying, you idiot, everybody knows that 3 + 1 = 4. And they're yelling at each other, getting red in the face. They might even come to fighting about it. And the cosmic joke of it all is that they're both right. That's the cosmic joke of it all. That's the secret. That is the secret. Everyone's right. It's not that everyone's wrong and we're waiting for would the real guru please stand up because we're all wrong and we need to find it. It doesn't work like that. Everyone is right. 3 + 1 = 4, 2 + 2 = 4. Whatever. I've waxed lyrical on that one quite a lot, but obviously it's a subject much more closer to my heart. What was the last thing I wanted to say on that one? Progressive and direct. Oh, interestingly enough, something I've noticed. When I stay immersed in the direct path, the direct awakening, and I like to go straight to Advaita now because, it's beautiful there. It's beautiful in the open, empty expanse of the void. Peace, serenity. I stay there and I watch my body and mind and life circumstances naturally end up, it appears that they're doing a progressive path. Go figure on that one. So to an outward observer, you might look at my journey and see a progressive path unfolding. I can even see a progressive path unfolding, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I just go directly to the experience and stay there. And naturally, the thoughts, the feelings, the inspirations to live a healthier, more positive, more productive, more proactive life just naturally just tend to arise. And I end up doing more spiritual activities as a byproduct of the awakening, not to create the awakening, but as a natural byproduct of the awakening. It comes after. The activity of the body-mind is the wake behind the ship. Now, that's really going to bake your noodle, but it's true. The activity of the body and mind, the activity of the world, is the wake behind the ship. You are on the ship looking backwards, watching the water flow out in grooves behind the ship. It's not the other way around. To the progressive path, it appears the other way around. But I would be willing to bet there's a lot of people who think they're in the early stages of their progressive path who are far further along than they think they are. But it's because they believe they're in early stages that they're not recognizing their own awakening. It's just because of the belief. And that's what I think is some of the danger of the progressive path. But I'm not here to throw stones from the other side from the ski lift. I'm not here to throw stones, sit on the ski lift, throw stones at everyone else. Everyone's journey is different. But I believe that's one of the dangers of the progressive path is a limiting belief. Oh, I'm a beginner. I'm a beginner of this yoga, of this meditation. No, you're not. You're already there. You're already Brahman. Don't worry about that. So I think there will be a lot of people on the progressive path that are actually already through the gateless gate, but they believe they're on a path going there. But my particular, yes, watch. You are on the ship, fully enlightened, fully awakened, and watching the wake of the ship dissolve. I hope that answers your question. Let me know if I went into enough depth on that one. Okay, so we do have some interesting stuff coming on in here. So Okay. As this one here that's come up about meds seems to be maybe a bit more immediate, I might have to answer that one first, and then we'll go into this question about weight loss. Apparently not really allowed to say weight loss anymore. I say fat loss, but I prefer the term weight loss, so whatever. Okay, okay. 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 So we have a question here from somebody who has, I will completely protect anonymity and everything, but it's relating to a stay in a psychiatric institution, just briefly. And it's about meds. Okay. Which is a common question. Shift my mental problems into physical side effects. Okay. Okay. Meds. Yeah, as one other commenter said, I can't give too specific advice about medication, um, just because I'm not qualified. Essentially, I can talk about my experience, um, and to be honest, my genuine view on meds is actually very middle of the road. In that, I do believe they can help in the short term. In the past, they've helped me in the short term, but they're not a long-term solution, which most people would probably agree with that kind of sentiment. But as to what you're describing there in the question, I am, someone else said quite accurately there, I'm just this that's slightly above my pay grade, unfortunately. Um, I can only speak very generally about that. And in my experience, meds helped me in the short term, but ultimately I progressed out of using them. That's as much as I can say, other than I am wishing you a very speedy recovery. And that must be a very difficult situation for you. That must be a very confusing time. There's probably a lot of turmoil, a lot of chaos. It's probably very frightening. It's probably interrupted a lot. So my best advice would be don't panic, which might be veering on the side of patronizing advice, especially as we're dealing with potentially exactly that. But just no matter what is happening, it is only ever the present moment. And that's all you will ever have to deal with, is the here and now. There may be chaos and turmoil internally and externally, and that's not just going to disappear. That just allow for that chaos to be there. This is temporary. This too shall pass. And you might be having to make a lot of decisions very quickly, or have some decisions completely taken out of your hands. Just make all of your decisions just come from the most grounded place that it can come from, and all will be well eventually. It is all part of the plan ultimately. There's going to have to be an element of just surrender to what's happening. Trust the doctors. You can trust them. Just for this short amount of time now, you can just say I'm a bit poorly and everything will be okay in time. Right now it's not okay, but it's going to be okay. And your mind will go from problem to problem to problem to problem. That's fine, but just breathe. And it will be chaos right now. It will be turmoil right now. But the the deepest wisdom eventually comes out of these moments. On the other side of it, you'll realize why you had to go through it. Often going through these acute times, these crises, then put you in contact with the support that you needed. That's what's happened in my experience. It's a shame it had to get to a crisis, but it just happens, you know? That's life. It had to get to that point before I could access the services, the people, and the information that I needed. So that's as much, I think, as I can wish you. It's just, I wish you the very best. I hope that you can find be the eye in the storm, you know? I watched this thing, obviously there's been a lot of talk about hurricanes and how powerful they are and how tumultuous they are. But you know, in the eye of the hurricane, it's perfectly still. You know what's strange? You can look up and see the sunshine in the eye, whereas there's clouds all around it, but there's a perfect circle in the middle. And if you were stood in the middle, you'd be fine. So your space of being is that eye. The clues are in language. There we go. We just found another one. The eye of the storm. The eye of the storm. Your space of being is the I. I as in just the letter I, and I as in EYE, the I. And you can watch the chaos around you, even of the mind, the internal and external world, but just know, even if you can't access that peace straight away, just know that it's there. And ultimately, that's the place we're returning to. This is a temporary setback. That's all. This too shall pass. There is a way through everything. Take it from me, I've had crisis after crisis after crisis in the past. And each time I thought that this one is the catastrophic one. There's no coming back from this one. And each time life moved on, I recovered and I realized, oh, that was just another storm. We have some support and advice for that, remember? So thank you all. Thank you, everyone. Let's have a look. Just see if there was any. Okay. I'm so glad that those words are helpful, because this is a subject close to my heart, and these crises, people just don't really understand, do they? They just don't get it. That's why it's important to speak to people who have been through those experiences before in the past, and ultimately this will deepen the peace coming out of the other side of things. Your spiritual understanding just elevates and elevates and elevates, provided we keep looking at it in the right way. So just remaining as that eye of the storm, and ultimately everything becomes revealed to be, somebody said the world is your guru. I can't remember whether that was from a profound ancient sage or an Instagram post, I don't know. But the world is your guru. And that's how I've come to see things. Everything that comes up, it's just another opportunity. Okay, let's have a look. Just have another sip of the old Kool-Aid. I know that's quite a dark reference. But... Can energy and trauma release be linked to assisting weight loss? I noticed that each time I had this, I lose about 4 pounds. Also, a lot of trauma has happened involving my stomach, hip area, and where my issues all are. Yes, okay. Yes, food hasn't helped, but this is the area I feel most pain comes from. Most of my emotions are felt there. Yes, absolutely. Naturally, one of the most dramatic sort of changes in my transformation has been my physical transformation. I went from being type 2 obese to healthy BMI, and it's all tied, it's all the same process. It's all transformation, it's all changing, and there's no difference between the body and mind. They're the same organism. So naturally, there's going to be changes in the body, and it will be related to this energy and trauma release. Personally, what I found is that through the practice of finding the inner peace, the discipline of mind to practice this meditation, I gained control over my cravings and urges. And so I no longer took part in these food binges and things like that. Because of that discipline, I actually just found I wasn't turning towards comfort eating because I was already at peace. So I wasn't turning towards that because I no longer needed it. I didn't want the sugar anymore. I didn't want the pizza anymore. And obviously I stopped drinking alcohol. So that's the majority of my weight loss was right there, to be honest. So for me, that's the perspective I kind of ended up landing with, is that actually it was the fitness transformation was like a physical manifestation of the transformation of my inner world. But all of the stuff I did in the physical transformation helped me to develop my psychological discipline and my spiritual practice also. If you think about Shaolin monks, they they push with their discipline. The point of why they do that is to endure such physical hardship that it forces the mind into presence, and it purifies the body in that there's no ego when you're involved in that very strenuous, hard physical discipline. So for me, they both kind of work together, the physical transformation and the spiritual transformation. And there was a time when I was trying to say, well, which is it? Is it one more or one the other? And then I just realized, well, they're both the same thing. It's the same thing happening. As I mentioned before, it was the awakening there is the recognition of consciousness, and then just understanding that this physical, like observing this physical transformation take place as well. So in terms of, can the energy release, like physically release, actually burn the physical weight from the body? I don't know. I, there's some things I don't see why not, from what I've kind of come to understand, because a lot of the tissue in our body is the stored energy pattern. So there could be a release of that there. But I would say instead, it's probably more that as you come to find you're more at peace with yourself, you just find that your habits change. And that's probably more likely what's happening in terms of the weight loss. That's what I would suggest. Oh, we have one comment saying, thank you. I was fighting with my daughter about religion, but I stopped. Right now, I get your message. Excellent. That's the peace and serenity that we all long for. Peace on earth, right there. If we all recognize that we're all going up the mountain together, just from different pathways, then there will be no more conflict. We can leave everyone to their own path. It's fine. It's fine. Each time I'm going to ask a question, the answer turns up. Yep, that happens often. We had the mention of Tantra there, which I mean, yeah, obviously, for one thing, just to clear up straight away, is Tantra, the word Tantra and Tantric has been completely misinterpreted in the modern world, thanks to a Sting. I don't know if you ever if you come across him, but yeah, Tantra isn't. It doesn't mean what a lot of people think it means, but the Tantra as a yes, the path of the inward facing, very powerful, and something I learned to do when I realized that I was becoming I was becoming very avoidant of certain emotions. I was becoming very avoidant of just the accepting and allowing parts of the spiritual practice, because what can happen, particularly in the direct path, this is one of the massive downsides and criticisms of the direct path, is that you can fall into this trap of just of almost neglecting your emotional world, neglecting your emotional life. Can happen, and it happened to me, and I would recommend avoiding that trap. Advaita Tantra, yes, Advaita Tantra. A very you might see a few meditations on my the meditations on my channel that are about allowing yourself to feel the feeling, and but from the perspective of awareness. Feel the feeling from the perspective of the infinite universal consciousness, not from the perspective of the egoic individual body mind. Because from the perspective of the egoic individual body mind, a lot of those emotions and feelings can be unbearable. They're too much for one person. So in Tantra, perhaps this would come up if you've been on the direct path or the Vedantic path for a long time, and you are very good at abiding in the space of being, but you notice there are particular emotional patterns that continually rise up, sometimes called vasanas, or we could just call it an emotional pattern. In cognitive behavioral therapy, it's just a pattern of thinking, an unhelpful pattern. And if you find that this is continually happening, what can be helpful is to stop turning away from the emotion and to turn towards it. From the perspective of the infinite universal consciousness, without the narratives, without the story, which is what we practice often, is without this story, without the narrative, even without the content so much of the mind, without the cognition aspect, without the mental images, without the constant arguments back and forth. I mean, how often have you heard this one? I should have said this. I should have said that. If so and so says this to me in this way again, I'm going to say this. They shouldn't treat me like that. I shouldn't behave like, this constant argument that plays in our heads all the time. Don't get involved in any of that. Instead, turn towards how the emotion is felt in the body, and notice the mind has a resistance to going there. It doesn't want to feel it directly. The mind wants to go to story, projection, cognition. It doesn't want to experience the emotion directly. So if we have the courage and confidence to just go right there, go right to it, not in a masochistic sort of way, but in a loving way, in a gentle way, in a way of just abiding with and as that feeling, and say, look, I've been running from this feeling my whole life. My whole life, I haven't wanted to feel this particular negative feeling. It could have been there for a very long time. what if we could just step towards it and embrace it and say, it's okay, I can feel this. It's just a feeling. It's just a feeling like any other. Feel it in your body, feel the emotion as it is, and just notice the qualities of the feeling. How does it manifest in the body? What is the actual feeling that I'm running from? After all, I've been running from it my whole life. What actually is it? What actually is this feeling? I mean, what is it? We did this today in the meditation of just without any, just the sensation as it is in this present moment. I'm not going to try and avoid it now. I'm just going to feel it. What is it? What is this feeling? Oh, and you may notice that the negative charge to the emotion begins to subside a little. It's still got an unpleasant quality to it. So for me, there's some of the more horrible bits, like a long-standing anxiety with a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of that real darkness all tied up in a horrible little congealed knot. And it's like, oh, okay, so it's not ideal, but well, it's there. So, oh, okay, let's just feel it as it is, and okay, it's just a feeling. It's just a feeling. And if we can practice that to start becoming at peace with it, you will find you're no longer so reactive when that feeling begins to arise. Because often the feeling arises and we immediately want to run away from it. We naturally, because it's unpleasant. And often that's when we start escaping into substances or activities or behaviours. So if instead of the running away we turn towards, but lovingly, it's not masochistically, as I must suffer. No, it doesn't work like that. It's just a feeling. Let's feel the feeling. What actually is it? Is it so bad? Well, it's not nice, but it just is what it is. And then, okay. So that would be a sort of Advaita Tantra towards something like negative emotion. In Tantra, they say devour your emotion. Devour. Bring it, which means to bring it into yourself. It could be considered integrating. Integrating your shadow is how Carl Jung would put it. Which is powerful and very beautiful because it recognizes these parts of us. It recognizes that it's there. We no longer have to pretend it's not. We no longer have to be afraid of it. It doesn't mean anything, really. It doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you've failed. It doesn't mean you're not strong. It doesn't mean any of that. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a feeling. All those other things are narratives. We don't need to worry about the narratives. Just go to the feeling and, okay. Now, there's a nuance here. It's important because we're dealing with sometimes quite ancient feelings, some quite dark and ancient feelings. So it's almost like an internal martial art that almost starts to happen, not martial art, like an internal yoga, like an internal discipline, internal training. Because naturally, when we feel something unpleasant, we want to get rid of it. And so you might, on hearing about this practice, you might think, good, now I've got another practice that will get rid of this thing. But that's slightly off. That's not quite the right approach. The approach has to be, okay, I can feel this within the present moment, and I'm happy for this to be here for as long as it needs to be here. It's not trying to burn it away. It's just this is here. I see it. I feel it. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not trying to get rid of it, but I'm also not going to run away from it. It's just here. And just see that this takes some discipline and practice, not what we're used to doing at all. Don't go into the mind to cognitize anything. Don't rationalize anything. Just feel it as it is. Emotion doesn't operate on the level of rationality and logic. Emotion is not logical. It's not rational. So just there's nothing the mind can do to it. It doesn't work. If we could find a way for the mind to do something about it, we'd have found it by now, right? So it doesn't work like that. Instead, it's just an embracing, allowing it to be a part of you. And then you find, because there's no longer a threat, because it's no longer a problem, the pain goes. But we can't do it to try and get rid of the pain. If we try to do it to get rid of the pain, we make it stronger. It's still an avoidance. It's sometimes, I think of the awakening journey, or maybe perhaps even the healing journey. It's like having a magic safe, and there's £1 million in the safe. But the only way that you can get that £1 million, the only way this magic safe will open is if you don't want the £1 million. The moment you don't want it, the safe opens, right? But then you reach in to get the £1 million and the door shuts. So that's the sort of this gentle, playful nuance that starts to happen when it comes to these sorts of feelings. Now, that's speaking entirely on the sort of how to heal from the negative sort of emotions using that tantric approach. But obviously, Tantra also means we can allow ourselves to experience life fully in all of its facets, and not to see either pleasure or pain as a problem, just to allow yourself to just experience life as it is. And we need to be careful not to become hedonistic, which is seeking pleasure all the time, because that's not helpful either. But it can be helpful if we've lived a very rigid life, if we've sort of felt like we've had to be very disciplined about things. Maybe even in the spiritual tradition, you've come to see that pleasure itself is like a sin, it's like a bad thing. Whereas Tantra is sort of just don't worry about that so much. Don't seek it out, but don't deny it when it rises. That's probably the best way, I would say, to approach pleasure. Yeah. Don't deny it when it rises. If it's there, then it's there. It's great. But we have to apply the same thing to pain as well. Don't seek it out, but don't deny it when it rises. Another quote I heard was, pleasure is not happiness and pain is not suffering. That was quite a powerful one. So that's a little on Tantra. There's some quite interesting ones here. Yerg, you must let me know how to pronounce your name. I get people's names wrong all the time. I do apologize. Yerg, Jag, sorry. Great to have you here. You're very welcome. I enjoyed that meditation too. How would you shake a very stubborn belief that says people should be honest? Mm. We always have to be, our internal ears should always prick up when we hear this word should. When should comes up, we know that there's that that's a sign that we're about to go into quite an unhelpful thinking pattern. So should is always an issue. Always an issue, most often. Most often should is an issue. Um, why is the I would say, why is the belief causing a problem? It's nice when people are honest. A lot of that when it comes to other people's behavior is just understanding we'll never be able to control other people's behavior. Never. It's a waste of time. You They ain't interested. People are not interested in changing. They're just not. And all we can ever do is change our own behavior. That's the only thing that we're ever in control of, really, is our own behavior. So don't worry about what anyone else should do. Don't even worry so much about what you should do. Should is often when the mind is trying to put a constraint on something. You will find the more deeply we can awaken, the more deeply we can go into the true universal consciousness, the deeper we can do that, the more you'll find a lot of these things just clear up. It just won't be a problem for you. It just won't. You'll find you're naturally honest. I think we could probably all agree that honesty is a virtue. It's a virtuous thing to be honest. But I think we've also all met people who are too honest. And that's that can be quite aggravating in itself. If you've ever met someone who's like, oh, I don't care what people think, I just say what's on my mind straight away. It's like, well, yeah, but that can be very powerful and very good. But sometimes we need some tact. Sometimes we need to just practice a little discernment in just how honest we are. Sometimes people can be too honest. It does happen. It would come down to where that belief originates in terms of getting rid of beliefs. Well, firstly, as I say, I'm direct path, so just drop the belief, just drop it. You'll save yourself so much time. You'll save yourself so much time and effort on the direct path, trust me, because the moment you're aware of something, you'd rather it wasn't there, just dismiss it. It's just, okay, there's another belief, there's another belief. A belief is just a belief. It's just a cloud passing in the sky. That's it. Just another thing discarded. The moment we're aware of it, discarded. But if you find that it's very, as you say, to be fair, you did say it's a stubborn belief. So I'll assume you've already taken steps to try and step away from this belief. If it's stubborn, and this is a clue, a big clue for many, many different things. If something is persistent and stubborn, that's when we would investigate its origin. Because often when something is persistent and stubborn like that, it's like it's tugging at your coat constantly. It needs your attention. If it's something that bugs you, it bothers you, it constantly gets in the way, it makes you angry when people aren't honest, then we investigate the origin of the belief. So maybe there was a time in the past when either there were strict punishments for you if you weren't honest. That can be, that it could have been something that was held so firmly and tightly that if you weren't honest, then it was like very severely punished. Then it's obvious where that belief has arisen from. Or it could be you have been hurt deeply in the past by someone else's dishonesty. That can be another origin for this belief. Just understanding where that particular origin for you has come from and understanding that there's a personal element to this stubborn belief. And it's not universal to everyone. Not everyone has this, but maybe you just find, so people's dishonesty is probably very triggering for you. It probably hurts when other people are dishonest. Whereas you might have noticed other people aren't as bothered. You might be furious. So and so lied. Can you believe it? They weren't honest about this. They lied about something. And everyone else in the friend group is like, oh, like, okay, is it a big deal? But for you, it is. And very rightly so, because there's a personal wound that has been opened by this. So I would say if something is stubborn and persistent, investigate its origin. Then from that position, so there's usually 3 stages to this sort of thing. Awareness is key. So that's firstly it. So exactly as I just described there, when you notice that someone's dishonesty or your own dishonesty or just the thought people should be honest has caused that reaction, I'm assuming a lot now, I know, but if it does cause that reaction, just be aware of it. And secondly, then notice what thinking pattern arises out of that trigger. So that's the second sort of stage, is first you notice what the triggering thing is and how it manifests in the body. Notice how your internal and external behavior is affected by it. And just as always, just bringing yourself into that full presence of awareness, just right here, right now, just feel it as it is in the moment. Disregard the triggering words or disregard the triggering event and just feel it as it is. Let it rise up, have its time in the sun, and it'll go. And then the third stage would be to practice that form of meditation when you're not triggered, when nobody's been dishonest, you've not been dishonest, and that thought isn't even there. Just meditating on the emotional reaction that rises either from the belief itself or when somebody is dishonest or you are dishonest. Just meditate on how that manifests for you. And all that's happening is we're turning up the light of awareness, the light of awareness, the light of awareness. Shadows cannot exist in the light. It's as simple as that. So if we have any of these shadowy beliefs that operate your behavior from behind the scenes, like the puppet master, because they do, beliefs in particular do this. All we have to do is keep turning up the light of awareness. Just keep turning it up. And it's a bit like, I know I use a lot of metaphors and I shouldn't mix metaphors, but it's a bit like when we want the body to fight an infection that's in the body, all that has to happen is the immune system has to be aware that something is in there that shouldn't be. That's it. Once the immune system's aware of it, it takes care of it rapid, as quick as it can. There might be symptoms. There might be an illness that happens, which are actually the symptoms of the immune system ridding the body of it. But what we needed to do was make sure the immune system was aware of the presence of something we would rather wasn't there. And a lot of shadows operate by being shadows. They operate underneath or hiding from the light of consciousness. That's what a shadow is. A shadow is the absence of light. There's no such thing as a shadow. Not really. There's no real such thing as a shadow. All a shadow is the absence of light. That's one definition of evil. There's no such thing as evil. It's just the absence of good. Simple. Not saying the belief is evil, by the way, but it could be a shadow. So the more we turn the light of awareness up on every single aspect, every single area of our life, the more we flush out these unconscious behaviors. Anything that was just below the surface of conscious awareness, the more we turn it up, the light, the more these things just cannot stand. And you'll find, interestingly enough, the more you do this, the more your mind automatically begins working on these issues, because your mind is a problem solver and it cannot stand it when there is a problem in your life. It can't stand it, but it needs to know which problems to address. And you'll notice that when you see these things clearly for what they are, your mind will do its actual job. the job it should have been doing all along. But you're already engaged in this process very efficiently by the sounds of it, because it's inherent in the question. You've understood there's a stubborn belief there. One, you've recognized a belief can be stubborn despite trying to rid yourself of it. And the people should be honest. So you're aware that that's a belief you'd rather wasn't there. So again, the medicine's already in. The medicine's already in. The immune system's already working. It's only a matter of time until that shadow is eradicated. If it persists, however, then we need to do some deeper investigation. There was one that came in that I wanted to... Let me know if that answers your question, by the way. If there was any more to that, then please just let me know. I can see you are a channel member as well, so find a way to message me either through the Discord or on Instagram, and I'll get on that straight away, which is a lovely segue into plugging. You can see the join button just below here somewhere. I do have channel memberships that are available, so you can access my exclusive guided meditations and listen ad-free. And with one of the membership options, you can join the Discord, which is a chat room, and soon to be unveiling YouTube communities as well. I don't know when that's going to be, but that'll be coming soon too. So for a small monthly subscription, which supports me in the channel and helps me upgrade my equipment, feel free to just check out the little join button there. I am aware that there's some technical errors with the joining process at the moment. The payment, I think Super Lisa had that issue to begin with. If you could let us know how that resolved in the end, Super Lisa. Just try a couple of times. I think eventually it'll get the message. Bit of a shame that there is a glitch on that particular area, but just bear with us. I'm sure we'll work out those teething problems as we go. Or YouTube will anyway. I say we. I'm not acting in official capacity of YouTube here. But yeah, sorry for the plug, but that's whenever there's a natural segue, I like to just bring it up because, well, also I'd like to start doing this more of my part-time and go into full-time with this. So it would be, the memberships are a very good way of it's a very supportive way YouTube came up to support creators with being able to do this as a job, basically. I did want to, we had an update on the medical situation that we had a week ago or so. Ah, okay. So I won't say name as to protect anonymity, but since a heart attack, this member has been at war with her mind. She's always been and felt healthy, so maybe it's the shock. Yeah. Naturally, that's going to be a huge shock. That's going to be a massive... big health concerns like that always shake you up, and it's particularly... it brings our most primal fear right to the surface. And this is a fear that is always present in the background, but it's not until we have a big health shock that it's suddenly... the reality of our own mortality is suddenly very, very real for us. But we have to also understand that that's a huge opportunity in itself. I'm sorry to hear that it's resulted in a sort of war in the mind. I'd be very interested to know how that's manifesting. Is it... a lot of people feel very guilty when they have a big health setback. I don't know why that is, but just the way we're conditioned. I think we think when we get sick or injured or have something like that happen, we often just feel like we've let ourselves down. We feel like we've let everyone else down. It's strange that we have that feeling. Whether that's inherent to us or a conditioned thing, I don't know. But we have to reconcile with that feeling of guilt, because there's nothing you can do about it. It's just the human body has the body has its limitations and has its fragility and has its weakness. It may come down to changing the way you're framing it. Frame it in a way that it's positive. I mean, for me, it was the clarification of my mortality that kind of sparked my transformation, and I think it had to be that severe. And again, I know I keep talking about my personal training days. I'm not plugging my personal training here, but it's something I noticed, that the most motivated people in the gym, the most motivated members of the gym and clients, are the ones who have had a health scare. People who are just coming in because they want to they want to lose a bit of weight for the beach. Summer's coming up, they got a holiday, they got a bikini they want to fit into, or even when people have like a wedding, they want to wear their nice suit or whatever, or just general sort of stuff. The motivation often just isn't quite there. They're just not that committed to the goal. But when I have somebody the doctor has told them, look, you need to sort this out because you're developing diabetes, we could have some heart disease coming in, or just something like that. People are so motivated to change at that point. There's no stopping them. So sometimes the health concerns can be a big triggering point into a massive positive, but it's so early days, it's probably not very kind for me to say that right now. I think your intuition is good. It's the shock. It's the shock of it all. This is early days. And just knowing that in itself can be very powerful. Just allow for the shock. Just allow the shock to subside and recognize this recovery will be a long process. This could go on for quite some time. And just beginning to frame it in a way that is beneficial for you, healthy for you. And I did really feel for you. I'm sure everyone in the group did. It is quite a shock, isn't it? And I hope you're well now and recovering well. In time, this too shall pass. Had a question saying, just checking to see if there's a wrong way to meditate. I've heard that one should not do it unless you have been taught, and there's a dark side to it. You can go too far. I personally, I disagree with that. It would probably be a better way to look at it would be to treat the practice with respect, in that just recognizing that it's not a passive thing that we're doing when we're meditating. So I will concede it can be very intense, and what somebody's probably told you there might be, it seems like they were just too, if somebody said that to you, they were too, they might have had bad experiences or something. It's too intense what they're saying there. But there is no harm in recognizing that during meditation, sometimes unpleasant, uncomfortable feelings can arise. And on occasion, we might sometimes have repressed memories arise. So it can be uncomfortable, but I wouldn't say that you should not do it unless you've been taught. That sounds like that could be somebody, because did that person then say, and I will teach you, because we can see what's happening there. There's lots of, similar to the thing about the paths going up the mountain, there's lots of people going up one path who don't like the other paths. A lot of the paths are always arguing with each other, and some of them might not like meditation for some reason. There are a lot of spiritual paths that don't include any meditation and say you shouldn't do it. So it could be coming from that sort of place. Naturally, from my position, I'm going to say, no, I think meditation is a good thing to do. I don't think there's a dark side to the actual practice itself, but dark things can arise. But just as it's just a good idea to have we need to know those dark things are there in order to heal them, in order to be liberated from them. And it could be, sometimes people might mistake becoming aware of a darkness that's already there. They might mistake that for being, oh, the meditation has created this darkness, but it's the other way around. When you turn on a lamp, it creates the shadows in the areas the lamp isn't touching. Before you turn the lamp on, the whole room was shadow, the whole room was dark. You just weren't aware that it was all dark and shadowy. It's only when you turned on the lamp that some of the shadows were seen. So that can be what's happening when we're meditating. We're turning the light of awareness up and becoming aware of certain areas of darkness. And sometimes people might misinterpret that to think that it's the meditation that's creating the darkness, but that's just a misperception, essentially. And also I would add, there's no harm in seeking a method or seeking some tuition, seeking some guidance that you feel comfortable with, that you feel speaks to you, that you feel is safe. Because if you go into it feeling like this isn't a safe practice, it's not going to work. So finding a methodology for meditation that works for you, that you feel comfortable with and you feel safe with, and go from there. But in itself, is it a problem? No. In my experience, it's only ever brought benefits, and some of those benefits have been profound. It's only ever brought health. It's only ever brought mental stability. It's only ever brought clarity. It's not always been pleasant. It's not always been smooth. It's not always been comfortable, but it's always been healthy. Beautiful. I've noticed we're coming to 2 hours and 23 right there. I think we'll probably be coming into a natural close of today's session. Thank you all so much for listening and participating, and for being so open. As I mentioned before, the words come a lot easier and flow a lot easier when people are receptive. I don't know how that works. I just know that it does. So thank you so much for being open and receptive, for the participation in the chat. Such amazing comments, such amazing questions, such amazing insights. It's so heartening to see there are so many people on this path of healing, awakening, whatever you want to call it. This is proof that there are like-minded people out there. We might not all see eye to eye all the time. We might not all share the same views and opinions. We might not share the same experiences, but we are united in that we're all seeking something, whether it's healing or whether it's seeking the truth. There's enough people who are deeply interested in this, and it's an important part of their lives, that we know we're not alone in this. Our own individual journeys and stories, our own individual journeys might feel lonely at times. We might feel isolated, but that happens because in our usual everyday life, we don't find many people who are on a similar path to ours. But when we come across people who are, it reaffirms to us we're not alone in this. So very heartening to see. Thank you. Thank you. Also, when we heal ourselves, we're removing a huge part of the negative energy, we could say the negative karma from the common stock of human consciousness. So by healing yourself, you're doing a huge service to the world, and never lose sight of that. Even if you never spoke of it to anyone, even if you never went out and did any great compassionate deeds, just healing yourself would be more than enough to go a very long way to helping raise the consciousness of humanity. So again, a deep felt gratitude from me to you. And a namaste. As always, don't forget to whack the old like and subscribe on the way out, remembering the membership options are there. And it is the most important in life. Thank you. And thank you, Dorth. I hope I'm saying that right. Denmark in the house. Have a beautiful rest of the day. Have a wonderful rest of the week. I will try again on Wednesday to do the live stream midday on the Wednesday. We will see if the YouTube angels are with us then, or if the Agent Smiths are working hard to interrupt my live streams. Take care. Be well. And stay present.